So as I said in the video I put out last week, analysing why every Manchester United manager fails, which I'll leave linked in the eye above and in the description below, because if you watch that video you'll understand my reasoning behind why I think Manchester United need to sack managers more often. But in short, I think you have to make a decision as early as possible as to whether a manager is good enough to meet your short-term objectives, let alone your long-term objectives, as otherwise you are simply keeping a dying dog alive, rather than just accepting the reality, putting the dog out of its misery, and then just getting another dog. The best way of thinking about it is if you had 10 grand of your own money on the line, do you think Ruben Amorim gets top 5 this season? If the answer is no, you might as well sack him now, rather than waiting another 3, 5 or 10 games and then making the decision when the results are so bad that you've really got no other option, but by then we are so far behind that the next manager, whether he's an interim or permanent, has to make up a significant points gap in order to just achieve the minimum objectives for this season. Now if the answer is yes, you still think he can get top 5, but you don't think he's the man to win us a title, then even if he was to go and achieve the objective of getting top 5 this season, and you subsequently keep him for next season, you then run the risk of missing out on the coach that you actually do think is good enough to win us a title if they are available in the summer, just as we've done in previous scenarios with Klopp and Guardiola. But before I get into that, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. They've got the new Manchester United releases for the upcoming season, with OK Jersey also allowing you to pick up high quality football shirts from just £15, plus free shipping across Europe for all orders over £45. They sent me over these new release alternative Manchester United jerseys from this season, as well as a long sleeved retro home shirt from the 92-93 season, with Cantona 7 on the back, alongside this Nuno Gomez Benfica shirt from the 97-98 season as well. If you use code ATLANTIS at checkout you'll get a discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comments section below. See, when deciding whether a manager should be sacked or not, the question isn't just about if they should be sacked, but also when you decide to do it. And as I've said before, I think most people think of the answer to this question from completely the wrong perspective. They ask themselves, does the manager deserve to be sacked? As in, have we given him enough time to provide us with enough evidence to show that he does deserve to be sacked? Now in the case of Amorim, I struggle to see how with the record that he has, you can say that sacking him would be unfair, but for the purpose of my argument, let's just assume that he hasn't quite done enough to deserve to be sacked, which really can only come down to the fact that we are 4 games into the new season. Now even with that assumption, that is not the question you should be asking. The question that should be asked is whether sacking the manager is more beneficial to the club's short-term and long-term objectives than it would be to keep him. Did Ole deserve to be sacked at the end of the 2020-2021 season after finishing 3rd and then 2nd? No. Was it of greater benefit to the club to sack Ole and upgrade with Zidane or Ancelotti? Yes. However, the issue is that the board would rather give the manager enough time to prove they should be sacked rather than making the decision themselves. They want the dog to die on their own a slow and painful death, rather than having the responsibility of killing the dog and potentially facing some backlash from the fan base, even if the dog is going to die anyway. But for me, Ruben Amorim's situation specifically makes it even harder to not come to the conclusion that sacking him now is in the best interest of the club, as opposed to keeping him and waiting to see if he improves. It seems to be almost identical to the Ten Hag situation. It was Ten Hag's ego that got him sacked, and it's Amorim's ego that's going to get him sacked. Amorim seems to be doing exactly the same thing that Ten Hag did, and that is changing the style, specifically in the build-up phase, in order to avoid changing his system, so that the perception that his system is effective can be saved. Now this may sound contradictory. You may ask if Amorim, like Ten Hag, is instructing the side to go long directly from build-up, rather than playing out of pressure in the defensive third, as is almost fundamental to their system, at least in one way or another. Surely that is changing the system. Now that is a valid question, and I can understand the confusion, but let me explain it as simply as possible. It's as though Amorim has this system that cannot be altered, and so rather than changing micro elements within the system, such as maybe having the central centre-back starting on the edge of the box but rotating into a deeper position as the ball becomes active, the wide centre-back then shifting wider, the wing-back advancing, and one of the double pivot dropping to the edge of the box, and maybe an interior forward or wing-back dropping or inverting into this area, resulting in a temporary change of possession shape and positional rotation that could drag the opposition players high or wide in order to create spaces in their pressing shape for us then to play through. Amorim, like Ten Hag, seems insistent that the strategies and setups during certain phases of play are not the issue at all, and so rather than making these small changes within the system, he would rather abandon it completely and just go for an extremely basic ball progression tactic of just going long straight from the keeper, with really no calculated setup around it in order to make it effective, simply to preserve the perception of his system. From the outsider looking in, it seems like if he was to make changes within the system, in his eyes, it would almost be admitting that the system was the issue and was not effective in the exact way that it was being used. However, by abandoning the system completely, it then enables him to cling on to the perception that the system does still work, but can now use the excuse of not having the right players to make it effective. Ten Hag, now Ruben Amorim, and also Postecoglou at Spurs have almost become emotionally invested with their one specific system, to the point that it's almost as if they feel that the system is their sole tactical identity, and that they can't accept that the system could be the issue because they built their whole reputation around this one specific system, and that their previous coaching reputation is no longer valid without them using this one specific system. However, this then means that in order to think that Amorim is good enough, not just to get top 4 or top 5 this season, but also to win the title eventually, you also have to think that the system in that particular format is good enough to do that. And the issue with this is that there is no one system played in the exact same way from a setup and a strategy perspective in each phase of play that is going to be good enough over the course of a few seasons, transitioning from one league to another under a different set of players, that is going to be good enough to achieve any sort of significant success at the top level. And that's because the tactical side of football, specifically in the Premier League, because of the standard of coaching throughout the entire league, is constantly evolving, and so unless a system is constantly evolving as well, it's going to fall behind, not even over a matter of seasons, but it can happen over a matter of months. If Amorim refuses to evolve his system and the system is not effective currently, how are United going to improve? I mean, he hasn't evolved the system beyond a couple of game-specific tactics in the last 10 months, and so how is giving him more time going to suddenly solve those tactical issues? Even if we had De Zerbi or Farioli, who I think fundamentally have better possession systems, which I'll explain tactically in another video, refusing to evolve your system is eventually going to lead to decline, because even if your system is the most effective in the league right now, in a couple of months opposition coaches are going to work out tactical solutions to stifle the effectiveness and exploit the weaknesses. So evolving your system regardless of how effective it is at any current point in time has now become mandatory for any elite level coach. Otherwise you're not just going to stagnate, but you're actively going to decline, as we saw with Ten Hag, and we are now seeing with Ruben Amorim. So let me know if you agree with my analysis in the comment section below, and if you do want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to okjersey.com. You can use code Atlantis at checkout for a discount. I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comment section below, and if you do want to sign up to my Patreon, I'll leave it linked on the end screen now as well.